She didn't growl, she didn't bark, she just stared at me from the shadows. Beneath that broken porch on the edge of 5th and Ellington just outside Houston. Her ribs were showing, her fur was matted and dry, and her eyes didn't ask for help, they asked if I was going to be the next one to hurt her. I crouched down, slow and careful. The air smelled like dirt and hot metal. I was there to inspect the property for demolition, just another abandoned house. I wasn't supposed to see anyone, but when I stepped onto that creaky porch I felt eyes on me, and there she was, German shepherd, young, maybe 2 years old, thin as a shadow. I spoke to her soft, "Hey girl, you okay?" She didn't move, her paws were curled beneath her like she was guarding something. Then I heard it, a faint whimper, then another. My chest tightened. I backed away, returned to my truck, and grabbed the leftover sandwich from lunch. Turkey and bread. I knelt again and slid it across the cracked floorboards. She didn't move, but she sniffed the air. Then, after a moment, she stood. That's when I saw them, 3, no 4 tiny German shepherd puppies hiding in the dark. Behind her, one was curled in the back, barely moving. One had its head resting on a piece of fabric, something red like a child's sock. The others peeked out but didn't come close. She didn't eat. She picked up the food and dropped it by her pups. They chewed with tiny jaws like it was their first real meal in days. I felt the heat in my throat, the kind that tells you this isn't just a moment, this is something you can't walk away from. I stayed a few more minutes, no sudden moves, just sitting, watching, letting her see I wasn't a threat. Before I left I whispered, "I'll be back tomorrow." Didn't know her name, but something in me already knew I couldn't leave her there. Not her, not them, not after what I saw in her eyes. The next morning I was there before the sun even touched the roof. I parked across the street and walked slow, carrying a bag of fresh food and a small bottle of water. The neighborhood was silent, just wind and dust, and that porch still sagging under years of rot. She was their same spot, still guarding, but something was different. Her ears perked up when she saw me, not trust but not fear either. "Morning, Mama," I said softly. I sat on the edge of the porch, careful not to look directly at her pups. I placed the food down in the same spot. She sniffed the air, glanced back at the shadows where her babies hid, then crept forward. She didn't eat, not yet. She nudged the food gently, then turned back to the porch. One by one the puppies came out. The smallest one, the one with the red sock, came last. He dragged it like it was his blanket. The mother finally ate, slowly, watching me the whole time. Her eyes were tired but not broken. I noticed the smallest pup's back leg trembled. When he tried to stand, he fell twice before curling up again. My heart sank. He needed help. They all did. I opened the bottle of water and poured some into a shallow dish. She didn't stop me. She let the puppies drink. She let me stay. An hour passed, then 2. I just sat with them, not saying much. She never barked, never growled, just kept looking at me like she was trying to understand why I came back. I looked around the yard. There were broken bricks, twisted weeds, and an old tire half buried in dirt. Someone had dumped a ripped-up blanket by the fence. This wasn't a place for life. It was where things were forgotten, but somehow this dog had chosen to stay, to protect, to survive. I left a soft towel before I walked away. I didn't look back until I reached the truck. She had taken the towel, brought it to her pups, and laid down beside them. One paw rested over the smallest one. I knew I couldn't wait much longer. That little pup wouldn't last in the cold another night. Tomorrow. I had to try something more. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lying there, bones pressing through her skin, guarding her babies with nothing but will, especially the little one, the one with the sock. His tiny body barely moved. He didn't cry, didn't whimper, just Breathed shallow and slow at sunrise I packed a box lined with a soft blanket, filled a thermos with warm broth and grabbed a leash I wasn't sure I'd even get to use. I didn't want to scare her, I didn't want to separate them, but I also knew if I didn't act soon we might lose him. When I arrived she was waiting this time. She stood when I approached. She didn't run, her tail was low but it swayed just once like a flicker of hope. I placed the box near the porch, put the warm broth close enough for the scent to reach. She stepped forward, sniffed, then turned back, and then something I didn't expect. She picked up the weakest puppy very gently and carried him to the edge. She placed him beside the box and looked up at me, not like she was asking, like she was giving permission. My throat tightened. I whispered, "Okay, sweetheart, I got him." I lifted him gently into the box. He didn't resist, he didn't even open his eyes, he just shivered. She watched the whole time. The other pups huddled behind her, still hidden in the shadows. I waited. Maybe 15 minutes, maybe more. Then I sat down right there on the porch and just talked, told her everything, that I wasn't going to hurt her, that I'd take care of him, that I'd come back. She didn't move. But she didn't stop me either. I took the box, placed it in the front seat of my truck, and turned back one last time. She was still there, standing over the others, eyes fixed on me. That drive to the vet felt longer than any road I've ever known. I kept glancing over, whispering, "Hang in there, little guy." At the clinic they rushed him in, dehydrated, underweight, temperature dangerously low. The vet looked at me and said, "It's good you brought him when you did." I sat in the waiting room, sock in my hands. It was torn and faded, but it still smelled like hope. I wasn't just saving him, I was coming back for all of them. The vet let me stay after hours, said I could sit by the kennel while they ran fluids. The little guy, he was hooked up to and wrapped in a tiny blanket. He looked even smaller under the clinic lights, but he was breathing steady. Slow. I held on to that sock, couldn't bring myself to put it down. The nurse asked me what it was, and I told her the truth. I think it's his whole world. They let me leave it with him right by his paws, and when he shifted in his sleep, barely lifting his nose, he curled closer to it like it made him feel safe, like maybe, just maybe, he knew he wasn't alone anymore. That night I went home with empty hands and a full heart, but my mind stayed on that porch, on the mother who watched her baby drive away and didn't chase the truck. She trusted me, and now I had to earn it. The next morning I went straight back with a new plan. This time I brought a bigger crate, extra food, clean towels, and soft rope just in case. She was there waiting, like before. Her head lifted when she saw me. No bark, no growl, just those same eyes, tired but watching. I knelt down, opened the crate, and placed food inside. Then I backed away. She came forward, slowly sniffing, then turned back and nudged the other pups one by one. They came out, cautious, wobbly, but this time they didn't hide. And then, without hesitation, she walked into the crate. All the way she turned around and sat down like she already knew it was time. I didn't shut the door. Not yet. I sat beside them for almost an hour. Let them eat, let them breathe, let them decide. When I finally reached for the door, she looked at me, straight into me, and didn't flinch. That was all I needed. I closed it gently, whispered, "You're safe now." In the rear-view mirror I could see her eyes watching the trees pass by, and I realized this wasn't the end of her fight. It was the start of something she'd never known, safety, and she gave it all up for them. Now it was my turn to give something back. The shelter wasn't much, a small building with chipped paint and chain-link kennels out back, but it was clean and it was safe. I'd called ahead, told them I wasn't dropping off a stray, I was bringing in a family. When I carried the crate inside, everyone turned silent. A volunteer opened the gate slowly, and the mother stepped out first, calm, strong. She didn't Shake or cower, she walked like she was leading her children into a new world. The pups followed them, stumbling over each other, the tiniest one, the one I'd taken to the vet, wasn't with them, but his sock was. I'd brought it back just like I promised. The mother sniffed it. The moment I laid it down, she nudged it softly with her nose, then looked up at me like she remembered everything, like understood. They settled into a clean kennel with soft bedding and fresh food. She ate slowly, letting the pups eat first. Again, that never changed. I asked one of the staff members if I could stay a while, just sit near them. He said yes. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching them sleep. The mother, she curled around them like a shield. Every now and then she'd lift her head and check on me, not afraid, just making sure I was still there. The next morning I returned to the vet. The little one, he was doing better, still weak but stronger than before. They let me bring him back to his family. When I carried him into the shelter, wrapped in a towel, the mother froze. She stood slowly, came to the edge of the kennel, and let out the softest sound I'd ever heard from her, a breath, almost a sigh. I opened the gate and placed him down. He didn't walk, he didn't need to. She came to him, licked his face, nudged him back into the fold. The other pups piled around him, tails wagging slow, no barking, no yelping, just warmth. The staff was quiet. Some of them had tears in their eyes. One whispered, "We never see things like this." But I wasn't surprised, because I'd seen her under that porch. I'd seen what she was willing to endure, and now, for the first time, she wasn't doing it alone. I started coming every day, didn't even think about it. I'd finish work, grab a bag of food or some old towels from home, and head straight to the shelter. They started calling her Mara. I don't know who picked the name, but it fit her. Strong, quiet, like the storm she'd walked through and survived. The pups were starting to move more, explore their space. The smallest one, the one with the red sock, was still fragile, but he could stand now, walk a few steps before toppling over, and every time he fell, Mara was there, nudging him back up with that same calm patience that kept them all alive. One evening I brought a new toy, a little stuffed fox. The moment I set it down, the biggest puppy grabbed it and ran into a corner, tail wagging like crazy. The others followed, tumbling over each other, learning how to play. It was the first time I heard sound, little growls, tiny yips, and Mara, she watched from her spot, head resting on her paws, eyes half closed. Safe, finally safe. I sat next to the kennel and just watched. One of the shelter staff, a woman named Renee, sat beside me. She said quietly, "They're healing faster because of you." But I didn't feel like a hero. I hadn't done anything special. I just showed up. That's it. I showed up when no one else did. Renee looked at me for a moment, then said, "Most people see strays and think someone else will help, but someone else never came." That stuck with me. Mara had waited, not for food, not even for shelter. She waited for someone who wouldn't run away when things got hard, someone who wouldn't just drop off a bag of kibble and disappear. And I realized I didn't just rescue them, I was becoming part of their story, and maybe, just maybe, they were becoming part of mine. The day the adoption forms landed on the front counter, I froze. Renee handed them to me with a smile, but her eyes were searching. "You've been coming here every day," she said gently. "I figured maybe you'd want to make it official." I stared at the papers. Mara's name, 4 tiny boxes underneath for the pups. It felt too big, too sudden. I wasn't planning this. I didn't even know if I was ready, but when I turned around, they were all there, lined up at the edge of their kennel, like they already knew, like they were waiting for my answer. Mara stood last, calm still, but her eyes, they were softer now, like she had hope in them, real hope. I didn't sign that day. I just sat with them like always, brought them fresh blankets and fed them by hand the Smallest one-eyed started calling him. Scout he still slept curled up with that red sock. It was filthy now, but I couldn't throw it away. It was his comfort, his anchor over the next few days. People came and went. One family asked about the pups. Another couple pointed at Mara. Through the glass I felt something twist in my chest. I didn't know what it was until that night I was driving home, headlights cutting through the dark, and I realized I didn't want anyone else to take them, not because I was afraid for them, but because they were already home with me. I pulled over right there on the side of the road, took out my phone, texted Renee 3 words: I'm ready. All of them, no hesitation, no doubt. I was going to give them what no one else had. Not just a roof, not just food, forever. Renee cried when I walked through the doors the next morning. She had the forms ready, already printed, already marked with sticky notes. You're really taking all 5? She asked, like maybe I'd changed my mind overnight. I hadn't, not for a second. I signed every line. Mara first, then Scout, then the other 3, Ash, River, and Luna. Their names had come to me like they were always meant to be. I knew who they were. I knew who I was now. To the shelter gave me a crate, some food, toys, even a starter bed. But when I loaded them into my truck, Mara in the passenger seat, the pups curled in a blanket-lined box behind us, it didn't feel like we were bringing home supplies. We were bringing home family. The house was quiet when we arrived. I had cleaned for days, cleared a space in the living room, laid down rugs, plugged in nightlights, but still I wasn't sure how they'd react. Mara stepped in first, cautious. She sniffed every corner like she was memorizing the walls, checking for danger. The pups tumbled in behind her, tails already wagging. Scout walked straight to the center of the rug, laid down his red sock, and curled around it like this place had always been his. I sat on the floor and waited, didn't move. Mara came to me, placed her head in my lap, and let out the deepest sigh I'd ever heard, a sound full of weight and release. That night the house wasn't quiet anymore. It was alive. Tiny feet on hardwood, little whimpers, the sound of breathing, peaceful, steady, full. I didn't fall asleep on the couch. I just stayed there, lights low, Scout tucked against my leg, Mara by the door like she still needed to protect us all. But I think deep down she knew she didn't have to be the strong one anymore. We were strong together now. It's funny how fast the house can turn into a home. Within a week the pups had found every hiding spot, every loose sock, every sunbeam on the floor. Luna would sneak under the bed and come out only when she heard her name. River liked to sleep in the laundry basket. Ash had a habit of dragging all the toys into one corner, like he was building a secret fort, and Scout never let go of that red sock. It followed him everywhere, outside, inside, even to the food bowl. It was torn and faded now, barely holding together. But it was his, a piece of the past he wasn't ready to let go of. Mara changed too. Her ribs disappeared, her coat softened. She started to run, not just walk, run, full gallop across the backyard, like she'd remembered she was still young, still wild, still free. She'd nudge open the back door with her nose every morning and do a quick loop around the yard before circling back, rounding up the pups like a proud general. I watched it all with my coffee in hand, heart swelling bigger every day. But it was more than just watching. I started waking up earlier, going to bed later. My phone stayed in my pocket. More work didn't feel as heavy. The world felt lighter, because every time I looked around I didn't see a rescue, I saw purpose. They weren't just lucky to be found, I was lucky to have found them. Sometimes I'd sit on the porch at night, the same kind of porch where I first saw her, and Mara would sit beside me, no leash, no command, just calm, steady presence. I'd scratch behind her ears and whisper, "You saved me too." She didn't answer, she didn't Need to her eyes told me she already knew it happened on a quiet Sunday morning. No big moment, no warning, just a knock at the door. It was Renee from the shelter. She held a clipboard, but her face looked worried. Behind her stood a man in a clean jacket, sunglasses on, arms crossed. He said he was from the city. Said the abandoned house was scheduled for demolition weeks ago. Said someone had filed a complaint that I removed animals from city property without permission. I felt the air leave my lungs. Renee stepped in fast. They're safe. They're adopted. They're healthy. But he kept going. Words like procedure, documentation, unauthorized removal. I didn't hear all of it. My heart was beating too loud. Then he asked, "Do you have proof these animals were in distress?" I didn't answer. I didn't have photos, no video, just memory, just moments burned into my chest. Mara's stare, Scout's still body, the red sock on cracked wood. But then before I could speak there was a sound, soft pause on the floor. Mara stepped forward, calm, confident. Behind her, all four pups' tails wagging, ears perked. Scout walked right up to the man, dragging the red sock like a flag behind him, and for a moment, just a moment, the man stopped talking. He looked down at the scar on Scout's leg, at the way Mara stood in front of them, all not barking, not afraid, just certain. Renee spoke again, quiet but firm. They don't need paperwork. They're standing proof of survival. He didn't argue, just gave a tight nod and turned to leave. Renee stayed a moment longer, gave me a look. "I'll never forget. You did more than save them," she said. "You gave them a story no one can take away." That night I sat on the floor, Scout curled beside me, his sock tucked under his chin, and I realized no matter what anyone says, no matter who knocks on our door, this is our home now, and nothing will ever change that. Sometimes the greatest rescues don't happen in a single moment. They happen over time, one quiet choice after another, one whisper of trust, one paw print on the porch. Maya didn't ask to be saved. She only asked not to be forgotten. And Scout, he never let go of that red sock, because sometimes even the smallest thing can carry the biggest piece of hope. I thought I was giving them a second chance, but the truth is, they gave me mine. If this story touched your heart, please share it with others. Your action could save another dog, another life. Join our Brave Paws family. Together we can change the world, one paw at a time.